Okay, I will call to order the April 8th, 2014 meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board. Good afternoon and welcome. The Traffic Review Advisory Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic within the city of Oshkosh. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If the board does not recommend an item and you don't agree with our decision, you may discuss the item with any common council member, and that council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding the item. All items recommended by this board require 2 readings before the common council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, May 13th, at 6 p.m. The item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak to the item. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you would like to speak, please step up to the podium, give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item you are speaking to. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. We didn't get any minutes, Jen.
No, they were sent out with the cancellation notice, and they were from November 12th meeting.
That's why, okay.
And you read them in December.
Okay, makes sense. So approval of our last meeting's minutes.
November 12th.
November 12th, okay.
Move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0.
Okay, I assume that, are all you here for Sawyer Street? Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll move items 10 through 14 up to the top, and we'll take care of that item, those items first, and then we'll move back down and take care of the rest of the agenda items. And so let me flip here to number. Okay. Item number 10, we have a request for unrestricted parking on the east side of Sawyer Street from 75 feet south of Tyler Avenue to 20 feet north of Coolidge Avenue. The current condition is a loading zone. Item number 11 is a request for no parking on the west side of Sawyer Street from 199 feet north of Southland Avenue to 234 feet north of Porter Avenue. The current condition is unrestricted parking. Item number 12, a request for no parking on the west side of Sawyer Street from Rush Avenue to 358 feet north of Porter Avenue. The current condition is unrestricted parking. Item number 13, a request for no parking on the east side of Sawyer Street from 398 feet north of Southland Avenue to Rush Avenue. Current condition, unrestricted parking. And then the 14th item that ties in with these parking proposals is a request for a striped bicycle lane on both sides of Sawyer Street from 9th Avenue to Fillmore Avenue on the east side and to Buchanan Avenue on the west side. The current condition is no bike lanes. Okay, anybody on the board have anything before we? Okay, if anybody wants to speak to these items, you can step up to the podium and.
Good afternoon. I'm Ben Kremenauer, City of Oshkosh Planning Services. I'm staff liaison for the Bike Ped Committee. Be more than happy to answer any question you guys have about the proposed bike lanes on Sawyer.
I guess the first question I have is this consistent with the plan in general? Did they make any changes from what was in the bike plan for Sawyer Street?
Good question. In 2011, September 2011, the city adopted the Bike and Ped Plan. This is consistent with their Bike Ped Plan. It is actually on their 5-year priority chart, and I do have a map that I'd be willing to hand out to the committee so you can see it being consistent with the area. Pass this one. What I'm doing is I'm actually passing out two sets of maps. The first set of map that's going around is just the pedestrian priority routes. The second set of maps is the overall routes in the city of Oshkosh. I apologize for the small size, but as you can see, Sawyer Street is consistent with the priority 5-year plan and the city's overall bike and pedestrian plan.
And then I guess the second question would be is if it goes forward this year, is there money in the budget to go ahead with the striping and the markings and the signage and everything that needs to go with this plan?
I was under the impression that our former transportation director, Chris Strong, did have some resource available. This was actually recommended by the Bike Ped Committee last year. So he did, I do believe, had some funding resources that could be designated towards these bike lanes.
That really didn't answer his question, though. I mean, is it yes or is it no?
Yeah. As far as you know, the money's there, right? I know.
I would say it's probably just included in the overall operating budget.
Okay,
for the
'cause I know we put
signage.
money-
It's not earmarked, I don't.
It's not earmarked, but
But
there is funds that were
Put in there
designated
for
for
marking,
striping
marking.
purposes.
Painting and
Marking,
markings.
so, yeah, it would just
Okay.
come out of that account.
Okay. Has any look been taken at the geometry of how these bike lanes are going to lay out on Sawyer? I think of the bike lane on Algoma and the inherent difficulties with it because it actually shifts. We do the shuffle as we go down Algoma with a bike lane. Do we see that situation not being a problem on Sawyer, particularly when it gets to the median portion?
There were a couple different options that were brought up to the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. The one that was preferred would have had 2 driving lanes, a center turn lane very similar to what we see on other roads, and then the bike lanes being on the exterior, the outside. When you do get up to Rush, where the median or that boulevard does kick in, it would be shifting where there would be a parking lane directly on the outside, the furthest outside lane, bike lane followed by a 12-foot driving lane. So there would be a transition between the two. Then once we get closer to Oshkosh Ave and south towards Witzel, the bike lanes would dissolve to allow for larger traffic flows in those intersections, and then it would continue as a new bike lane south of Witzel.
And that's a concern, quite honestly, for me, because it does
Yeah, these are
present
the
problems.
basic cross-sections are on page 5.
Yep.
But in there, part of it's going to be on what you do with the parking issues today. Because that will impact the design.
And I fully appreciate and understand why people want bike lanes. I get it. I mean, it's green, it's healthy, but it's a little hypocritical. Again, pardon me, but to put them in jeopardy at certain intersections because of the shifts we have to do. Now, I know Tim and I have walked University Avenue in Madison where they have bike lanes, but they go the step further and they actually curb them. They put in medians on University Avenue in Madison to prevent any shift as the bike lane goes down the road. It keeps cars out of it. It's an extra layer of protection for the bicyclist. So, again, I don't have a problem with bike lanes necessarily, but we've got to figure out a way to make it safer. And yes, I'm fully aware that there's going to be a humongous expense to do that. But if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right.
I don't know if I want to jump ahead here, but I guess in looking at this, more to item 14, I guess I do have some real design concerns at Sawyer and Witzel. I don't think those have really been properly addressed yet. I think it can be done. I didn't really try to design, I did some sketches, I think, yeah, it can be done. But I think maybe before the board would actually make a final decision, I hate to delay it 30 days, I think the board may want to look at some actual design for that intersection particularly. And again, whatever happens with the parking, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, the parking, if you leave the parking there are some other design options. So I think the board, to make a good decision, may need to see the actual design of this whole bike plan at Sawyer. So I'm just throwing that out before we get into.
And that gets to the
other
heart of my
stuff.
question.
Exactly.
Mark.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here that wants to talk on the parking, the no parking, and does it affect, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sharon Wirch, and I wanted to object to the plan to take away the parking in front of the office building at 417 North Sawyer Street. My husband, Attorney Robert Wirch, started his law office in this building in 1975. He rented space from Gear Murray Advertising, and he eventually bought the building. He passed away 2.5 years ago and left the building to me. We have always relied on street parking. If you drive by the building, you'll see a parking lot to the north of it, but it belongs to the building to the north. I have no parking for my office building besides on-street parking in front of it, and we have about a 100-foot lot. In the past, in addition to my husband's law office, we've rented office space to Redfield Lovell Insurance, Manpower, a private detective, another attorney, and a remodeled part so Zion Lutheran Church could have some daycare space while they were building their new building. We've always rented to low-traffic businesses which use the on-street parking within the 100 feet in front of the building. Currently, I rent space to attorney Karen Marone. Her clients need the on-street parking in front of the building. Some are elderly, coming to make a will, etc., and need to park right in front. Because of the hard winter and high heating bills, I've asked my daughter and her husband to come up, they live in Madison area, in a couple of weeks to help me move some furniture around so that I can rent out more space. I can't rent the building without any parking. On the tax rolls, this property is valued over $145,000. If I would wish to sell the building someday, taking away the parking and leaving me with none would certainly hurt the resale value. Please don't take away my only parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
That building is under number 11, if you were.
Number 11?
Number 11 is actually wrong.
My name is Karen Marone. I'm the attorney that Mrs. Wirch mentioned a few minutes ago, and she did state a number of things that I was already going to say, that the Wirches, of course, purchased the building knowing that they'd have parking right in front of it to allow for clients and customers. I do need parking for my business. It's a law practice. I do serve a number of elderly clients. In fact, a gentleman just the other day parked right out in the front, came up to the building very slowly, which they often do, or with the escort of family members, but they need something nearby in order to get into the building. And this is the only place that I know that I'm going to have parking in order to keep my business there. Some of the documents I read through anticipating the meeting tonight talked about a high potential for bike route use. I don't know exactly how that was substantiated. Personally, I don't think that I would use Sawyer for biking. I think that the number of cars I see daily and the speed with which they go past is kind of a concern to me. And my 17-year-old son also indicated that he wouldn't bike Sawyer either because of those reasons. What this does, this plan carves out the business, basically the business section of Sawyer Street to have no parking where it's needed. The business section needs it. And I feel that I'd like to indicate that adding this to be a no parking zone in front of the office or across the street for Zion would prove a hardship to these businesses. And I'd ask your committee to consider, please, not taking away the parking in front of these in that portion of Sawyer Street by Zion and then across the road. Thank you.
I might actually be able to address some of those concerns with reference to what one of the petitioner or one of the statements was why was Sawyer slated as one of our potential bike routes? And as we look at the priority mapping, it's one of the few roads that heads north-south in the area that connects existing infrastructure needs. There's parks to the north, and then there's a proposed future bike routes on West Fifth Avenue. So it's one of the few roads that runs that full length and connects with it. It also goes with connecting to future bike routes on Oshkosh Ave that we're hoping to amend, as well as future pedestrian routes that could parallel the river towards the Lakeshore Golf Course. So that's part of the reason why Sawyer Street was looked into for one of the bike routes, is because its proximity to businesses, its ability to get pedestrian flows, and get an additional source of traffic movement in addition to the normal automobiles in the area.
Question I have, when they approved the bike lanes and stuff on High, they didn't take away the parking on High, did they?
No, on portions of High, it's very similar to what we're proposing here. The only thing that's different with High is it's one way, so it allows for 2 lanes of traffic, the bike lane, and then on one side of it would be the parking. So it's very similar in style to this. The only thing that's different is it would be 1 lane of driving, the bike lane, and then the lane of parking. And that would be north of Rush. South of Rush would be the no parking, where it'd have the center turn lane, the driving lane, and then the bike lane. Please.
Have you done any surveys about how much this would be used if there were bike lanes? One person has mentioned that she did not think it would be used much.
We haven't done any numbered surveys that I'm aware of that states the amount of traffic for bike pedestrian flow on Sawyer Street, but we did contact both Roosevelt Elementary and Lourdes Academy. Both of them are in support of bike lanes being put in. They both feel that it is safer for their schools to have the pedestrian flows and the bikes in addition to the sidewalk. Other than that, we don't have any quantified data of what pedestrian flows could be after the installation of bike lanes, no, or before.
Was there any consideration to moving it to Joslin? Then you're like behind the schools and you have access to Titan Stadium, and then you can also hit like Fox Valley Tech and the Senior Center if you come off, Taft and go back that way.
If you look at our mapping, both the 5-year and the the 5-year and the overall did not slate Joslin, and one of the largest reasons for that was that it didn't connect all the way north of Sawyer Creek. Sawyer Creek's a barrier that's very difficult to cross over. There's very few places where it is crossed, and that was one of their concerns, was Sawyer is one of the few passageways that you can get over Sawyer Creek. Joslin would then have to cut back over to Sawyer and then head up north. And then to the south, it really doesn't go that much further south of Witzel, and it doesn't connect up with our proposed sidewalk or pedestrian ways on Fifth Avenue. We did have some concerns with where we placed some of the pathways when the plan was adopted. That's why we looked at trying to get most of them off the busier routes. Unfortunately, with Sawyer Street, it was one of the few that was north-south for a longer duration.
Yeah, basically, north of Witzel, it's not that heavily traveled, or the Boulevard section isn't as much either. It's like the section where you have like the Lourdes and that little shopping plaza, I think, are the heaviest traffic.
We did do some, I did look at the travel data, the traffic counts for that stretch, and between some of the areas, the largest amount that we saw, which was actually done in September of last year, was around 7,600 vehicles daily traveling. That's considerably less than Witzel, 9th, Oshkosh Ave, Murdoch. It's actually more in line with what Oakwood Road would be for traffic counts. And a portion of Oakwood Road that we did that survey look at was actually 2 lanes in that particular stretch. So the traffic volume is less on Sawyer than other roads that we chose not to put the bike lanes on. That was part of the reason why they did choose that area, is north-south connectivity and the traffic counts.
Tim, if I can ask kind of a general question to the audience, in a sense, I know it's a little out of order, but of the no parking areas, is it basically where the boulevard ends is the concern? Of if there's the change in the parking, it's okay with the boulevard, the school says it's okay, they're working with the city on those issues. The main concern is from basically the business section of Sawyer Street to Witzel is the concern of the no parking?
Starting at Rush, I
I'm
believe.
concerned from Rush Street south.
Yeah.
From the Delta.
From the
Yeah.
Diane Lutheran Church.
So Rush to the south to Witzel is the concern of the majority of folks?
Really, just the south.
Just the south one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't ever see any cars parked on the east side either, by the bank or, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it looks like, parking is currently allowed there, but I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a car parked on that side.
On Sunday mornings, sometimes
Okay.
there's people going to church.
I have a question of the police department, if we can.
Yeah.
Captain Cheney, I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to take a real look at this area, if you have any concerns or issues from an enforcement or concern for bike accidents or other accidents, because there's a lot of cross traffic.
I don't, and I personally do bike. I bike all the way from south side of Amarillo, so I usually take Witzel. Traffic isn't a concern to me. I do have a concern with the jetting in and out that was discussed earlier. I have that same concern on Algoma between Jackson and Wisconsin there. I take that home at night, and it's hard to get through there, and there's no bicyclists that I usually encounter or have yet. But I do watch the flow of traffic and struggle with that. So that is a concern. I mean, that's one of the things, and I'll say it from a bicyclist and a runner. It's kind of the job of not only the driver, but the bicyclist or the runner or anybody else sharing the road to all kind of work through those issues. That's a really nice stretch, Sawyer Street. I understand the concerns with the parking and all that, but as far as the bike lane and where the plan is going, I mean, it seems to flow with the longer-term plan from, what I've been exposed to it. The chief heads that up a little bit more. But as far as a safety issue, I don't see any with the plan other than that, what was pointed out earlier, the jetting at Boulevard, kind of jetting out or sharing.
Just from a transportation side, what recommendations do you have, or at this point, would you like to see it laid over with a little more study? I mean,
Somewhat at a disadvantage because I've not been in any of the meetings with the bicycle or committee. I guess I could throw out, and again, I don't want to step on Penn's toes, but there is such a thing as a shared bike and traffic lane, a SHARO. I just learned of today. So that's an option. If you want to keep the parking, you can do that. Basically, no one's going to be able to see this, but it's just, you'll leave the parking and then you share.
sure.
You mark it for area for a bicycle to be in, and the cars have to kind of adjust to where the bike is going. And that could be,
That's how high is done, right?
Well, high's a true bike lane.
Okay.
It's striped for bike lanes. It's a designated area just for the bikes itself. Sharos or a shared driving bike lane is an option. One thing that I would like to stress is the safety side of it. Now you're having bicycles and driving on the same stretch, and that does create issues. Unfortunately, we live in an automobile society, and I respect that. I drive my vehicle all the time, but you do have that separation with a bike lane that does create more awareness towards bicycle movements.
again, I was only thinking of this in that stretch from Rush to South, and you
Right.
could go ahead and do the normal everywhere else, but just in that one little section.
Mark, if I could, or Tim, if you could, just real quick. That's what I see when I take Witzel. There is no bike lane, but traffic shifts completely around the curbside lane. And it is a responsibility of both the cyclist and the cars, but the entire stretch from Oakwood, coming all the way into the PD that I take, most of it is shared road. So Witzel particularly, you will see, and that I did see as early as this week, gentleman looked like he had a bag from Fleet Farm, taking up the curbside lane. He was tight to the curb, but traffic just continuing its flow around him as if it was a delivery truck parked or something of that nature just going around. So I guess I would follow the same concept of what you just described.
Yeah, my concern is I don't want to see any of our business owners lose their parking, period. I wouldn't even consider taking away that parking. So my feeling is we have to look at a different option for that stretch where we do have businesses, and look at a different configuration or something. I guess my personal beliefs are I have concerns about the speed on Sawyer Street with vehicles, and then interacting with bicyclists and pedestrians. Because that street changes configuration numerous times during its stretch. You go from Boulevard to 4-lane, marked 4-lane, and you go back down to technically 2-lane marked road between Witzel and 9th. I think some further planning needs to take place to come up with a better layout for it. There's very little parking disruption up in the Boulevard area of Sawyer, which I wouldn't have a problem with, but that open section where we have the concerned business owners, I wouldn't support removing any parking from there.
So from a staff point, would you rather have us deny the whole thing if we went that direction for further coming back with maybe a little more detailed plan, or approve 10 and 13 and leave 11 and 12 because that's that open section? I mean, I know sometimes it stalls things, and I know, council's got to have 2 readings of it anyways, but we don't want to hodgepodge it either. So I guess, which way would you prefer that if we make a decision to not forward it to the council, the whole thing or in sections? Dave, come on. Help us out here, please.
Ben is like that guy. I was the staff person who worked in 2009 to 2011 on the bicycle and pedestrian plan. There's just a couple things that I want to make statements of from that group, that stakeholder group that worked on that for several years. From some of the comments I hear, it almost sounds like you think of bicycling as a recreation. This plan deals with bicycling as a transportation option. It's trying to connect destinations and origins. You have 2 major schools on this roadway. It's a major connecting route. You're also trying to connect the entire city, trying to retrofit bicycle facilities. We have great pedestrian facilities. We have sidewalks everywhere. Trying to retrofit bicycle facilities in this plan was always known it was going to be not easy. I mean, unless you're going to rip out every road and buy up frontage on every building and try to situate that. So I just want to make the point that when the plan recommends the facilities, you've got to look at an overall network. If you piecemeal pieces out of it, the network gets destroyed. It'd be like building a street that only goes half a block and then not continuing the street and then starting the street again. Well, the cars can drive over the grass. Well, that's the same type of concept when you consider the consideration for bicyclists. You can move them in and out of lanes, bike lanes. The safest bicycle riding is in a bike lane on the street. It's not in the sidewalk. It's not in a sharrow. So I just want to make that point out as well. There are always engineering issues with how you configure those. I'm not an engineer. I don't think the bike plan, I'm sure the bike plan has not went that deep. What it's really going at right now is saying this is a recommended route and a recommended major route, primarily because of the schools, the park locations, and the interconnections that it creates. I think to answer your question that you just kind of brought up, piecemealing it, approving pieces and parts without having that overall network thought in the back of your mind would not be advantageous. That's all I really wanted to say. But staff knew, and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, before the committee, the stakeholder group, knew that there would be issues with almost every installation because our streets are already built. But do keep in mind that this is a network. that the council felt important enough to adopt a bicycle plan for. There's a lot of legislation at the state, federal levels for complete streets, so not just abandoning your bicycles to complete auto-oriented roadways. Obviously, drive lanes are needed for cars, parking are needed for cars, but that's, keep in mind, thought process that goes into that. The street's for cars. The street is, according to the council now, is not only for cars. So you have to give weight to bicycles when you think about your street designs and your retrofits and your bike lanes. So that's all I really wanted to say and give you kind of the rationale when this plan was put together. It's not a standalone piece. If you start removing or recommending removing pieces out of this network, the network starts collapsing, and that's problematic. So that's all I really want to say.
I think the real issue is, are you going to remove the parking or not? Once you determine that, then we can proceed.
Right. If you're not going to remove the parking,
Then we need to
obviously the
redesign-
bike lane is not going to work.
No, I think it still can work. I think there's options out there with the Sharrows. It's not ideal,
Right.
but okay, in the two-block area on the west side, we're going to have to do that to accommodate the parking.
Well, and that brings a good point,
So
too.
you still have the bike lanes will still be there. They're just going to have to be designed a little bit different.
Right.
I'm not saying throw out, yeah, we
Yep. And in
don't
the
throw
rec-
the whole baby out with the
And
water.
in the recommendations of the plan, too, it's if one system can't work, you would go down to the next system. So if the bike lane couldn't function or was not feasible, let's say the roadway wasn't wide enough, there wasn't enough right-of-way to put it in, it's up to the council to decide what factors are going to be a metric to make that determination. You would drop down to the next facility. So the next facility would be a Sharrow. If you drop down below that, it would be just signing it as a bikeway, as a bike route. At that point, I suspect the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee would say you got to move the route, because a signed route doesn't do very much for bicycle safety, or to designate it as a route for bicyclists. But, yeah, so you could definitely go down, but at that point, I would think you would, if the parking, if you're not able to remove the parking from the street, the bike lane's probably not going to work in all sections. So I would say you probably have to lay it over and think of a redesign and come back, or make the recommendation going forward. I mean, there's going to be a recommendation going to the council from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee already. So, and theirs is to put in the bike lanes.
Thank you.
Question in the audience, is there anyone else that wants to speak? Otherwise, I'm going to make a suggestion here that I hope solves our impasse. Move to lay over agenda items 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 until such time as Mr. Huddleston and anyone he deems necessary comes forward with a comprehensive plan that includes what may be necessary for parking versus no parking, and the logistics and layout of a bike lane from Oshkosh Ave to 9th Avenue along Sawyer Street.
I would second that.
You second it? Oh, okay. Okay, those in favor, Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Haas?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Question, will we get another notification? Comes up again
Yes.
by mail?
For my clarification, so what you really want to, what I think you're going to want to see is probably the option of, in that one stretch, what options are available to you.
And
the
the
design,
unintended consequences and the opportunity
Design,
costs,
yeah.
yes.
Because
Intersection.
my big hang-up is the whole parking thing. I don't think we should sacrifice a business's parking to add bicycle lanes. Originally, these streets weren't designed for all this different activity on it. It was designed for motor vehicles. If we have to implement a bicycle plan into here, yeah, some streets it can work on. Right here, I'm just not sold on it based on the overall design. And if it was a one-way street, yeah, then it's a lot easier to do. But that's my 2 cents.
I think the only block with a problem is the west side between Rush and Porter, because by the gas station mini mall there's plenty of parking, the bank, the church maybe on Sundays, but everybody else
Yeah, we're
should have enough
a fairly
parking.
smart, small stretch of roadway
Yeah.
we need to deal with.
Yeah.
I think the east side, we didn't really discuss that. Maybe, well,
They've-
we're going to
yeah.
do the normal on the east side.
East side seems fine.
I think you're more concerned about the businesses that are.
Yeah, just in that one block, because like I said, that other block has the gas station and a few, Family Dollar. They've got enough parking.
Parking, correct.
And the transition through Witzel.
Right. Yeah, I have
And the Oshkosh Ave area, too.
Might want to also look at just how that impacts the south part, the softball diamond span bar field there, because during the summer months, there'll be a lot of traffic on the street.
Yeah, that's right. They fill that
good point.
entire area up with
That they have very little
parking.
parking for softball, and the rec department has games there. I think even the high
Yeah.
school teams,
Yeah,
the
I didn't-
JVs play at that.
That section does retain the existing parking.
Okay.
Now, it does have, it has the bike lane that sets on the outside of the car.
Okay.
But it does
Okay.
retain the parking.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's that cross-section there.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, so it's still there.
Okay.
This actually, I did stop, and I think everyone agreed, we're stopping it at Fillmore and Buchanan, because getting up, once you get to that bridge going over Sawyer Creek, there's literally nothing you can do
Right.
except on the sidewalk, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Then I will get with Ben, and we will discuss on who's going to get the two, I guess really it's the two options and design the intersection approaches, so I have some ideas on those.
Okay, back to item number 1, a request for no parking on the west side of Beach Street from Bent Avenue to 120 feet north of Bent Avenue. The current condition is unrestricted parking. Anybody here to speak on that? No?
Move.
Second. No.
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 I'm sorry. Do you have some discussion? I'm sorry, I'm jumping.
I didn't, so still no.
Anybody have anything to say on this one? No discussion? Move it.
Second.
Now we're ready for a vote.
Okay. Becker?
No.
Ross?
No.
Haas?
No.
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 Schuster?
No. Item number 2, a request for no parking, stopping, standing, or waiting on the west side of Woodstock Street from 428 feet north of Montclair Place to 477 feet north of Montclair Place, near the walking path to Carl Traeger School. The current condition is unrestricted parking.
Move.
Second.
I'm Paula Avercamp. I live at 1780 Woodstock Street. So this was the first that I had heard about this. I'm gone to work before it's ever a problem for me. But if anything like this does get upheld, I was wondering if you would consider please having in some stipulations like you do in item 8 or where you say on school days or whatever. Like I'm not seeing anything here because I imagine it's because of school traffic. But I don't see anything here about school days, and I don't see anything similar to like item 8, like specific hours, even if something like that. So if it does move forward, which it doesn't matter to me, but if it does move forward, if you would consider having some more stipulations to it, that would really be appreciated.
I guess it would not be an issue to put school days on there. Primary problem does come from the school traffic.
Yep.
The template's already out there, Mark, because we passed a few of those.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have gotten council's gotten several emails from citizens concerned about parking issues at Carl Traeger and traffic issues. So I know that the police department is working with the school district in that area. So yeah, I would agree that if we would put restrictions of school days and things like that, I think that would solve a lot of this on this.
I'm not sure it's even really legal to even park in these because the closest to the driveways. But again, just to put the school days would not be a major issue.
And move to amend to include school days only between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m.
I'll second that.
To amend, Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Cost?
Aye.
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye.
The one comment I did want to make on the broader issue is, again, the captain left, but enforcement really becomes the key here, and if you can pass that along. Sure. Up the chain, that would be helpful. We implemented a similar situation at Webster Stanley. As someone who's got a front row seat to that situation, enforcement's the key. It's not being enforced as heavily as it should be, so we still get problems, even though we did our best to try and solve them. So enforcement's the key.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so on the amended item, I would move it.
Second.
Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Cost?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Item number 3, a request for a loading zone on the south side of Melvin Avenue from Grove Street to Oak Street on school days between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. The current condition is unrestricted parking.
Move.
Second.
3 and 4 both kind of
Yep.
go together.
Sure.
I'm the principal, I'm Aaron Manders, the principal at Webster Stanley Elementary School. And right now, that space, the south end where our playground is, which is a bump out area, there is no marking. And therefore, right now, parents are parking, dropping off, and it's leaving essentially no spot for parents just to drop and go. So what we're having is some parents that have to stop literally right in the middle of the street to send their kids across. And that's really the issue. So if we made it a drop and go area, which I've been kind of doing myself, just trying to talk to parents without any police stipulation, because we've worked with the Oshkosh Police Department just to try to make it safer. And it's helped a little bit, but we know if it was drop and go, it would be much more successful and we keep kids a little bit safer. I think it was originally intended to be that way, and I don't know why it never went up.
It's been that way for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've
So-
lived in that.
And
When I chatted with people, that's what they said, is we thought that's what it always was, and there's just no signage.
Yeah, I drive by there every day, and I don't remember any signs around there.
And then the other is just the other side of the street, just because right now staff are parking, it's just too close to that curb, so we want to give a little more space. Okay.
Discussion.
We're strictly on 3 at this point. Okay.
Move it.
Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Cost?
Aye.
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Item number 4, request for no parking on the north side of Melvin Avenue from Hazel Street to 70 feet west of Hazel Street. Current condition is unrestricted parking.
Move.
Second. I think this just goes along with what the principal said. It just gives a little more distance from the intersection,
Yeah.
and a little more clarity. It's a heavily congested area. I think we all know that. Quite a few of us vote in that area, so we even know just to get some voting
Yeah.
things. So just makes sense to stay consistent in that area.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, to add and to maintain consistency, I would ask that we amend to include no stopping, standing, or waiting as well, because otherwise I think it defeats the purpose if we don't. So that's
That'll
what I-
end up being a voting zone then.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Do we have to amend that then, to add that?
Move to amend. I'm waiting for a second.
I'll second it. And so
You have to vote on the amendment.
we have to vote on the amendment.
Does everybody understand what Dan said? Everybody catch that? Okay.
Very
Get that
thorough.
written down?
Yeah, it's the same
Try to be.
Okay.
template. Okay, for the, to amend, Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Haas?
Aye.
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Any discussion as it's amended? I move it.
Second.
Becker?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Item number 5, a request for 15-minute parking on the south side of 8th Avenue from 105 feet west of Oregon Street to 440 feet west of Oregon Street between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. on school days. Current condition is loading zone. We're kind of jumping out of our consistent time frame here with school on-street parking, so I would actually like to see that at 7 a.m. to coincide with the previous couple that we did.
So you're saying amend the 8 to,
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to keep the times consistent with the rest of the, because I think everything's generally runs 7 to 4, doesn't it, in schools? That's what we just had those couple for,
I think we had voted last time when we did those ones was 7 to 4.
yeah. Yeah, so why this,
Schools and high schools, I think, open a little bit later, so that's probably why you see a different time, is my guess.
I think we're just.
yeah, this is actually
Private
for, this is at a, for a church preschool, so.
Which could argue that people are getting their kids before they go to work, so
Yeah.
might even be a better plan for 7.
Yeah, I would move to amend the time of starting of this parking to be 7 a.m. I don't see what adding an hour to it's going to hurt.
that'd be no problem. Yeah, I'd talk to her, that'd be fine, so.
Okay.
I'll second that.
On the amendment, Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
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 Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Any further discussion on this? I'll move it.
Second.
Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Okay, next 4 items look like they're all tied into Merrill. Number 6 is a request for no parking on the east side of Central Street from Tennessee Avenue to Custer Avenue. The current condition is unrestricted parking. Item number 7 is a request for unrestricted parking on the east side of Central Street from Tennessee Avenue to New York Avenue. The current condition is 2-hour parking from New York Avenue to 160 feet north, and no parking, stopping, standing, waiting from 160 feet north of New York Avenue to Tennessee Avenue. Item number 8 is a request for a loading zone on the west side of Central Street between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. on school days from Custer Avenue to 91 feet north of Tennessee Avenue. Current condition is no parking. And item number 9 is a request for no parking, stopping, standing, or waiting on the west side of Central Street from 91 feet north of Tennessee Avenue to 90 feet north of New York Avenue. The current condition is no parking, stopping, standing, or waiting from 90 feet north of New York Avenue to Tennessee Avenue, and no parking from Tennessee Avenue to Custer Avenue. Do we have anybody that wants to speak on these items here? Oh, look over there, I guess.
We're reading that big, long list. Hi, I'm Cindy Olson. I'm the principal at Merrill Middle School.
Okay.
And we're just looking to have a location for our families to drop their children in the mornings on the Merrill Middle School side rather than on the Merrill Elementary side. The elementary side has Kentucky Street, which has a very nice loading zone. We would like the similar option on Central Street.
Do you anticipate any problems with the residences in that area? That's a residential district.
It is. We recently, I think it was last year about this time, maybe 2 years ago about this time, we changed the parking from north of New York Avenue on the east side to be 2-hour parking so that our families had an opportunity to park for appointments that they had within our building. And at that point, it was all-day parking in that section. The northernmost section north of north of Tennessee, has always been all-day parking for the residents. I've not heard any discussion. There's really no residents that park on the street. It's teachers. That's where the biggest change is going to be coming from, is teachers changing where they park.
And you have adequate parking for those teachers to?
We have a gravel lot that they use off of Kentucky Street, and then this will be increasing the amount of all-day parking that they have closer to the building, actually, by moving the parking from north of New York to south of Tennessee.
Very good. Move it, or unless somebody else is.
Nope, second.
Yeah.
We're talking about these en masse, I would assume. So my question actually then relates to number 8. If I can get some guidance from Mark and the CSO potentially. We've got a loading zone that we're proposing between 7:30 and 9 o'clock, and again from 2:30 to 4 o'clock. What happens between 9 o'clock and 2:30?
Be no parking.
Little tough to enforce would be my first gut level reaction. That one. I'm a bigger fan of all or nothing.
I think that's the same signage that's on the Kentucky side for the elementary school.
I would argue we got something else to work on too. But
So as far as you know, then it's a loading zone and they don't allow any parking there during the school day at all?
On the Kentucky side?
Yeah.
Correct. Or no, that this is how it's worded on the Kentucky side, is that it's 7:30 to 9 and then 2:30 to 4.
And in between those times, people can, you're not aware of what?
I'm not sure what they do. I'm
Yeah, you're on the other side of the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can't remember. I was just told the other day, I was looking at them to try to get prepared for this. I'm like, but no, I don't remember. But I don't believe you can park there because of the loading zone, and then on the west side, or excuse me, on the east side being a loading zone, and then on the west side being the
no parking.
No parking. It creates that small gap between the two cars, and it's a big safety thing. So I believe it's all no parking.
The roadway during the winter would be too narrow there.
Yeah, I'm fine with it being no parking as long as we have no parking during that 9
You're
to
just saying loading zone all.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, because if the poor guy from God only knows where shows up at 9:15, he may have himself a problem.
Right. I would have to say it would have to be consistent. If it's on one side of the school, we got to bring it to the other side of the school to stay consistent.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Logistically, it gets delivered early in the morning, but the milk guy shows up at Merrill Elementary on one side of the building. I'm assuming his next stop is Merrill Middle.
Actually, there's just one drop because.
Okay, well, but humor me if you will. He's going to come around to the other side of the building.
Sure.
And, I got a problem now because I got here 5 or 10 minutes later than I usually do. So.
And we don't want to confuse people because, what time is it now? And that whole situation too, I think. So, and it's a safety thing even in the school, you suspect it.
Actually, you could have parking there.
Well, and that's
When
kind
the loading zone wasn't there, you could park
well,
there
because it's not in effect.
Because we removed the parking on the other side.
So.
So, yeah, it would be, the way it's written, I'm not sure this is how I intended to write it.
Well, that's between.
I was new when I started. This was my first project. Yeah, so you could have parking there.
So.
You would recommend no parking to stay consistent with what's on the Kentucky side.
I guess you could go either way.
Well, I'm going to crawl out on the limb here a little bit. Move to amend to make the loading zone from 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. Again, to be consistent.
Where I was going to go with it too. Just make it a school day loading zone and
be done.
Outside of that, have at her.
And it will be the way it's written out, it will be unrestricted parking then after,
Yeah.
fine, so that's the way it should be.
Well, and, yeah, and you're right.
I guess I did write it right. By accident. By accident. So you're going 7 to
4 school days.
So we have to vote on the amendment.
I'll move the amendment.
Second?
No.
Aye.
Oh,
Becker moved to amend. so
Oh.
we
Did
need
he?
a-
Yeah, I moved
Oh, I'm
to amend.
Tim seconded.
Oh, okay.
We're all set.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Any discussion on this item as amended? I'll move it.
Second?
Okay, now number 8. Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Okay, number 9, a request for no parking, stopping, standing, or waiting on the west side of Central Street from 91 feet north of Tennessee Avenue to 90 feet.
We amended
For
8.
6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion and a second on 6, but
I jumped 8. I
Did
jumped the
8.
gun on 8.
Okay, that's your, okay, that's fine.
We're done with 8. We need to go back to 6.
6.
Yeah, go back to 6.
Okay.
Blame it on Dan.
Well, we were talking about all of them at once.
Yeah, I know. I read them
stopped
all
while the
just to
iron was
get
hot.
anybody that wanted to talk on it
It's
from.
the new guy. I got
Yeah.
a little confused.
Ay, ay, ay. 6 years gone and he comes back and screws us all up. Okay, number 6, a request for no parking on the east side of Central Street from Tennessee Avenue to Custer Avenue. Current condition is unrestricted parking.
Move it.
I already have a movement and motion on that one.
Okay.
Do you want to vote?
Yes.
Sure.
Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
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 Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye.
Becker? Carried 6-0.
Are we doing number 7 now? Okay.
Your meeting. Whatever you want.
I forgot where I'm at. A request for unrestricted parking on the east side of Central Street from Tennessee Avenue to New York Avenue. The current condition is 2-hour parking from East New York Ave to 160 feet north, and no parking, stopping, standing, waiting from 160 feet north of New York Avenue to Tennessee Avenue. Move it.
Second?
Any discussion? Jen, you can call the roll.
Becker?
Aye.
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 Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. We did 8 already, right?
Now we're on 9.
Number 9, a request for no parking, stopping, standing, and waiting on the west side of Central Street from 91 feet north of Tennessee Avenue to 90 feet north of New York Avenue. Current condition is no parking, stopping, standing, or waiting from 90 feet north of New York Avenue to Tennessee Avenue, and no parking from Tennessee Avenue to Custer Avenue.
Move.
Second. Any discussion? Ken?
Becker?
Aye.
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 Kaminsky?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye. Okay, back to item 15, a request for 4-hour parking on the south side of Algoma Boulevard from Jackson Street to 60 feet west of Dawes Street between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. daily, except weekends and holidays. The current condition is 2-hour parking between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Move.
Second. Yes, Dan.
If you read through the narrative here that was provided, I think it's a request from the Salvation Army, but the impetus here is what actually concerns me. The reason why, because of some stricter enforcement, they want a longer parking opportunity. Not so sure we should set that precedent.
Yeah,
quite honestly,
I agree.
That's my point.
I agree. Any discussion on this?
It will also, but it will enhance, there is some businesses there besides the Salvation Army. I think there's a law firm there. I know when we had the, and then there's that apartment complex across the street when we had some parking issues in that general area the last time. They were concerned about parking on the street, lack of parking on the street. So I agree about the fact that the strict enforcement, that's what we want, especially when we make all these changes. But I think that with what the request actually is for volunteers that work at the Salvation Army and those that might be looking for parking to go to a couple of those businesses, I think it's appropriate to go ahead with 4 hour, with just that the police department now has to enforce 4 hours versus 2 hours. And it also is kind of kitty corner to the courthouse, and so some people may not have courthouse parking lot, as we know, is pretty crowded at times too, especially on intake days and things like that. So that gives a little more opportunity for people to park on the street if they have court in the courthouse. So it opens up an avenue for a couple options in the area. I just like bringing that up.
I would think if 4 hours is more appropriate. I guess I'm not sure I care how we got there, just because of enforcement. They were treating it as 4 hours because that seemed to be the appropriate amount of parking
Yeah.
time that was needed. So I guess just stricter enforcement, I'm not sure what that really plays into this. It's either 2 hours is better or 4 hours is better. I guess I think that 4 hours is better.
Do we have areas where it's 4 hour? I mean, it seems like the standard we've been going to is 2 hour if we're going to do a restriction on it.
There's 4 hours.
Yeah, down by Court Towers and some of that we added.
Okay.
Not too long ago. It was approved by council. But we try to stay consistent in an area, so we don't have 2 here, 4 a block away type thing. So I agree with Ms. Huddlestead on this.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning with Dan on this one because it wasn't a problem in the past because nobody enforced the 2 hours, so everybody got a free pass. Now they're enforcing the ordinance, and now it's a problem. I guess I'd like to see or hear their justification for having 4 hour parking on the street, and we don't have that here.
The only thing you got is one sentence that basically says that there's some volunteers that prepare meals that need to park in excess of 2 hours. And apparently they don't, I know the back of the building, the Salvation Army has very limited parking. And I don't exactly know, I don't believe there's much parking.
Yeah,
Maybe
they
the
park their
4
vans back there also, they say.
Yeah,
Maybe the 4 hours is always fine until they start enforcing it, and then
right,
you know,
right.
so
Any other discussion on it?
Move it.
It's already been moved.
Oh, okay.
Then you can call the roll, I guess.
Becker?
No.
Ross?
aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Jazinski?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
No.
Carried 4-2.
Item 16, a request for no parking on the south side of Columbia Avenue from Hamilton Street to 30 feet east of Hamilton Street. The current condition is unrestricted parking, and one that ties in with it is a request for no parking on the east side of Hamilton Street from Columbia Avenue to 75 feet north of Columbia Avenue. Current condition is unrestricted parking, and it looks like these requests came from the city's safety committee. And I understand their concern on that. I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Something I'd like to say.
Yeah. Why don't you step up there, give us your name and address, please.
My name is Kelly Quinn. I live on the corner of Columbia and Hamilton, 1922 Columbia. And there's a number of reasons that this needs to be taken care of, and I just want to see resolve. I don't want no big battles or anything on this. It's so congested. I witnessed 2 years ago, I thought it was going to be taken care of. A fire truck had to back up and go around, and it was trying to get through. Plowing is a terrible issue. The plows can't do it. That road is always so lumpy and bumpy. I try to keep my drains clear and my fire hydrant clear, but it's gotten bad over the past, I'd say, 5 years. And 90% of the cars parked there come from the doctor shots. And I understand they have a business, But when I see everything all filled up with cars on our intersections there, and their parking lot's empty, I kind of have a little bit of an issue with that. Also, what irritates me, because I try to take care of my terrace, I've got ruts this deep. They're not parking on the road anymore. They're parking up on a terrace because I imagine someone told them, you're going to have to stay over so the cars can get through or we're going to lose our parking. Well, I'm responsible for that corner. And I have a guy come through and roll it every year. I just gave up the last 2 years. And cutting lawn, I can't cut the lawn there until after 7 o'clock at night. So those are my concerns, and I hope we can get this to go through, and I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Any discussion on item 16?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
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 Schuster?
Aye. And number 17, a request for no parking on the east side of Hamilton Street from Columbia Avenue to 75 feet north of Columbia Avenue. Current condition, unrestricted parking.
Move.
Second.
Same reasons.
Gotcha.
Same vote.
Any discussion? Ken?
Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Haas?
Aye.
Kaminsky?
Aye.
Herman?
Aye.
Schuster?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
All right. Let's get through that. No bloodshed? All right. So the consent agenda issue that was laid over, tabled, or whatever, do we know what Chris did with that? Or
I
what-
have it.
You have everything?
He tweaked it, he did what you told him to, so I will come back maybe.
Okay, perfect,
I have
perfect.
one question.
Yeah.
I understand, this is more directed to the police department. I understand that it is illegal to park on a terrace. Am I correct on that? Now, I don't want to see a bunch of people getting tickets. But I just want to try to work with these people. And, you know, it's just, like I said, it's turned into a mess. It's a mud mess. And
If I could just address that real quick. Well, anyway, we do have warning tickets that we put out. So we can educate them 1 or 2 times, give them all a fair shake on, and they can call us if they need more information and things like that. So let us work with them. That's not an issue, but we still have to, receive that call. We'll come and, we took note, we'll come up into that area a little bit more. And so we're going to take that course right now and receive those, and I'll get all to the officers as well. But in the event that you see, you live there, so if you see something immediately that you say, hey, you can let them know, just.
I have compassion for businesses. They need a place to stay on the road.
Yeah.
Stay on the road. It's I go through that, and I got them 2 walnut trees there. I'm constantly picking up. That's the only time you don't see no parking there, when them things are falling. And I'm constantly picking them up to get them out of there. The road turns black. You can't help it. Cars are popping them. But it's just, I have an old fella come down and roll that, try to make it nice, look nice, and I just gave up the last 2 years. I mean, I got ruts, and it's mud. It's just really discouraging when you're trying to make the front of your house look nice.
Yeah.
And,
Don't hesitate to call, and it doesn't have to go straight to a ticket or anything like that. We can, we'll sit down and we'll talk to them, put out the warnings, and then proceed if the marking changes.
I appreciate it. It's my first meeting I've ever been to, and thank you.
Sure. Thank you for coming. Any, Dan?
I actually had former Traffic Review Advisory Board member Stan Klein come to me with a concern. As most of you may know, he's actually no longer a City of Oshkosh resident, but he actually pointed out an interesting situation to me. As you head north on the east side frontage road, and you approach what used to be Sears, which was before Kmart, at night, an optical illusion comes into play because you can see the lights continuing straight up into 21. His suggestion, and I told him I'd take credit for it, but I've already not done that, was to put chevrons in that curve so as to give people at least a little forewarning that there's a sharp curve there. I don't think there's any curve signing at all.
I don't think
to
there is.
approach that juncture.
Yeah, I've not driven that.
And it's been a while. I've driven it. So. road.
I drive it a lot, and I guess I don't pay attention, but I don't remember there being any signage. There might be one diamond sign that just shows, but nothing at the end of that.
actual curve.
Would be
Yeah.
further north of the old Kmart.
Right, just north of that, yes.
Curves.
Where Father Cars.
Yeah.
Cars, yes.
Yeah, exactly. In
It's
front
back
of Father Cars.
Okay, yeah, we can look at that.
The other thing, and personal experience on this one, Witzel, as it approaches the, again, east side frontage road, obviously there's a roundabout there, high volume of traffic. I don't know what the traffic counts are at that particular locale, but I'd be interested in seeing crash data on the exit entrance, call it whatever you want, from the Express Convenience Center and Steins.
Both from their driveway?
From their driveway out onto Witzel.
It's pretty backed up in that area.
It gets real backed up in that area, and again, personal experience, I wound up at the body shop because someone thought it prudent to make a left turn out of there.
I usually exit out by the Chinese restaurant and the
Yeah.
movie theater, and
I go down by Minus.
Yeah, coming back behind there, yeah.
I speed up
then you
there,
can come
but
around the roundabout, or
Just trying to turn left out of that.
And that's what got me.
so you're interested in right at the roundabout, or just from the driveway?
From the,
to
well,
the roundabout?
the crash data at the driveway, because I
At the
would
driveway.
suspect there's been more than one occasion where someone making a left out of that
You
driveway.
would think with the
I
volume up
would
there.
not even try, unless it was
I,
midnight.
I was unlucky enough to have someone try it immediately
Well,
as
it's
I
really
was
the same
approaching.
concern that we had with the CVS pharmacy thing. People wanting to turn left going east, had to cross 401.
Well, but we're, in this case, essentially, if, to solve the problem, we'd have to prohibit a left turn coming out of a
Right.
private parking lot, which gets a little dicey.
No, we can certainly get you the data, at least start there.
Anything else?
yeah, I wanted to bring up again about Pearl in Wisconsin. I brought that up, at the previous meeting, and like one day last week, it took me 5 light rotations to get through the intersection. The traffic backs up beyond Dawes there. I suggested if we could add 2 left turn lanes, it's similar to how it is on the south side in Witzel. There's 2 left turn lanes going north. If you had 2 left turn lanes, well, not like 2 left turns, like a left turn and then a left straight. But I'd say 98% of the traffic is making a left turn at that in the
I
afternoons
think there's some
anyway.
real geometric issues there. The streets do not line up.
Okay.
I know Chris has that in future items to look at some point, so it is on the radar at least. Again, that would be a major project to undertake that. I can certainly look at the signal timing, but I'm not sure we have a whole lot of wiggle room there. But I'll check. What time is the Pearl backing up? Is that
In the afternoons,
The afternoon.
yeah, 4 to 5 anyway. So because you got all the traffic coming into town off Witzel going north in the mornings, and it's all leaving in
yeah.
the afternoon.
right? Okay.
And is there a reason why the protected left turn on Wisconsin at that intersection is not active?
Yes, so I can move traffic on
It's on Wisconsin or Pearl.
on
The Pearl one
Wisconsin.
works.
You're talking
yeah.
on Wisconsin going northbound?
Or southbound, because it looks like it's all the
At Pearl in Wisconsin, at northbound, there's a left turn arrow that's not activated to turn into the Pearl?
yeah.
That's when you're talking
That one, and then facing southbound too.
Oh, I didn't even, okay. I had some questions on the other one, that's why I was
Yeah.
thinking about it. Again, it's to move that traffic on Wisconsin.
Okay.
Because if I start using those arrows, I'm going to have to stop traffic.
Okay.
And there's such short storage in each block, very hesitant to do
Yeah,
it. The
okay.
university has made that request to activate the one for northbound,
Northbound.
going into where their new
Yeah,
visitor center.
yeah, their welcome center.
We're going to do counts and look at that in the fall once
Okay.
that gets built and everything. So that is also.
Yeah, you do have quite a short distance between those
Yeah,
blocks, so yeah.
Wisconsin's always been an issue.
And you got a bridge, you got bridge closings.
Yeah, bridge closings.
Oh, yeah.
to Deal with, so.
That's going to be starting next week.
Yeah.
Or week after.
This is more of an education thing, and I don't know how we can address it, but the DOT's put those flashing yellow turn lane lights on, and I think a lot of citizens aren't aware that they can go when that light is.
Well, and I brought that up to Chris when they started doing that, and I thought that was a safety issue right from the get-go, because you got a red light, and all of a sudden, boom, you get a flashing left, and sure, it might be open, But
So I don't know how,
I don't know
as
if
a
they're,
community, or if this board can address it.
it's a state thing.
The state thing, but I
But
think
it's kind of like the
ridiculous.
roundabout. We've spent a lot of time as an education
Yeah.
piece on roundabouts, whether
Yeah.
it's city literature or police department or whatever. And I do think we should look at addressing that because we're getting more and more of them in the city.
Yeah,
And-
when they first started using that on South Park,
Yep.
by Keller Street and then up there, I thought I was seeing things. I thought there was a malfunction. So I called Chris, and he's like, he didn't understand what I was trying to tell him. I said, you got red light, you got, northbound traffic coming in has got green light, and they've also got a protected left turn. So the southbound traffic's sitting there, but as soon as they get their green light, the protected left over here goes to yield. And it's like,
I did not know what to do.
Yeah, there's an
I saw it. I was
education
like, what
piece
am
there. I don't
supposed
know
to do
what,
there? Yeah.
Dan, how you got that information for your.
Yeah, I did get some literature from DOT on that, and I'd be more than happy to.
That'd be great.
Compile that. And
I would love to have that.
Get it out.
I see a lot of people just, they don't go. They just, they think they're to wait.
Yeah. No,
well,
The light's going to switch to red, and they just stay there.
well, no, it's going to switch to green.
Yeah, but they think it's going to switch to red, I think.
Yeah,
And
because
so then
yellow
yeah,
is the
I-
predecessor to
yeah,
red.
it's-
Yeah.
Yeah, I've honked at a few people, like, because there's nobody coming, I was like, go.
Well, and the
right.
thing is, there is signage there that says yield on flashing yellow arrow. But, yeah, it is confusing.
So I
and-
think we could do it justice to our citizens with a little education piece somewhere.
Yeah, because
whether it's just
I know I've been sitting there and it starts flashing yellow, and I have an opportunity to go, I just wait for the light to turn green, because, I'd rather, who knows, you do have an incident, and then you're going to be fighting with the other person as to what color light was, and this, that, there. It's just confusing.
I just thought I'd bring that up.
Anything else? Any items for next month? Move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Did we get you out of here in time?
I'm okay.